Coming up on The World Today, the U.S. orders China to shut the Houston consulate in a move China has described as unprecedented escalation. A U.S. judge lifts a gag order on the criminal case against 4 former Minneapolis police officers charged in the death of George Floyd. Plus, those Nepal floods are even more dangerous. We'll take a look at an eyewitness's video of a motorcyclist caught up in the flood waters. Welcome to our viewers around the world and here in Nigeria. I'm Akaite Afia. The tensions between the United States and China just went up a notch as China said today that the U.S. abruptly told it to close its consulate in the city of Houston. The United States gave the Chinese side a deadline of 3 days to close the mission in the Texas city. Houston police force told local media staff were burning documents because they are being evicted from the building by Friday, July 24th. Relations between the United States and China have deteriorated significantly since the outbreak of the novel coronavirus in the Chinese city of Wuhan at the beginning of the year. China has responded with a strong condemnation of the U.S. move, calling on the country to recall what it calls is wrong a decision, or there will be countermeasures taken. During a briefing by the Chinese Foreign Ministry, China said the decision by the United States is a unilateral political provocation, which seriously violates international law, basic norms of international relations, as well as relevant provisions of the China-U.S. consular. China says the U.S. side is deliberately sabotaging China-U.S. relations, which it says is unreasonable. China says the unilateral announcement on closing the consulate general in Houston as an upgraded action that escalates tension between China and the United States to an unprecedented level. Just a while ago, the U.S. Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, addressing a press conference in Denmark with his counterpart, Jeppe Kofod, spoke about U.S. relations with China and the decision to shut the Houston consulate. He basically said China posed a threat to freedom everywhere.
With respect to the closure of the Chinese consulate in Houston, your point in your question was that there's been this long challenge of the Chinese Communist Party stealing intellectual property. We actually talked about this. It's not just American intellectual property but stolen. It's been European intellectual property too, costing hundreds of thousands of jobs, good jobs for hardworking people all across Europe and America, stolen by the Chinese Communist Party. You saw yesterday an indictment that the Department of Justice put out related to a set of activities that were taking place not only in the United States but across other countries as well. And your point that this has been going on for a long time makes our point. President Trump has said enough. We're not going to allow this to continue to happen. You've seen the remarks that National Security Advisor O'Brien gave, that FBI Director Wray gave, and that Attorney General Barr has given. We are setting out clear expectations for how the Chinese Communist Party is going to behave. And when they don't, we're going to take actions that protect the American people, protect our security, our national security, and also protect our economy and jobs. That's the actions that you're seeing taken by President Trump. We'll continue to engage in those.
We're getting updates on the George Floyd murder case as U.S. judge on Tuesday lifted a gag order in the criminal case against 4 former Minneapolis police officers charged in his death. The hearing on Tuesday followed a July 9th order from Judge Peter Cahill, barring the defendants Derek Chauvin, Alexander Kung, Kiernan Lane, and Tu Thao, and all attorneys to not speak publicly about the cases. All 4 defendants' lawyers filed a motion to lift or an objection to the gag order. In announcing his ruling, Hennepin County District Court Judge Peter Cahill said he agreed with defense attorneys' arguments that a gag order would be unfair to their clients and limit their ability to defend against negative publicity. Ahead of the hearing, the attorney for George Floyd's family, Benjamin Crump, held a news conference in Minneapolis. Crump has agreed to also represent the family of Calvin Horton, an African-American who was shot and killed by a pawn shop owner while protesting the death of George Floyd.
We are reminded over and over again that there seems to be two justice systems in America.
That's right.
One for black America and one for white America. And it should be equal justice for every citizen in the United States of America. And Kevin Horton was a citizen of the United States of America.
Well, joining us now is our correspondent in Washington, Maria Bird. Maria, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So these tensions between the United States and China have been growing worse, especially since the pandemic. But what does this have to do with the Chinese consulate in Houston?
The Chinese consulate in Houston, for those of you, I'm sure you all have heard, they were burning what they presumed to be papers in the courtyard of the consulate in Houston yesterday evening around 8:25 in the evening. And so when that occurred, there was someone called the fire department. The fire department showed up, but was not allowed into the consulate. And so no one's able to really get a good look to see what was being burned. But it's presumed to be, the smoke looked like if it was papers. And so it was, the U.S. government then said that they believe that potentially there could have been some activity that was spying or something that they didn't believe that was correct on behalf of the Chinese consulate. And so they have ordered that within 72 hours of yesterday that consulate be shut down. And so obviously China is responding in outrage. They don't believe that that is fair. They don't believe that that is correct action on behalf of the United States. And so no action has been reversed. China has called on the U.S. to reverse that action. And so that at this time, there has been no reversal of the action. And so we will see what happens on Friday if that consulate is actually shut down and those diplomats from China, if they do return back.
Yes, and like you said, China has responded with threats of retaliation. And I mean, it won't be the first time we've seen both countries spar over diplomatic issues. But what sort of retaliation could China hit the United States back with?
Well, we know that China and the U.S. are the two largest economies in the world. And so obviously one will be economic, but potentially looking at some of the consulates in China. There are about 5 U.S. consulates in China that could see themselves being shut down potentially. I mean, that's always would be the most, probably the hardest hit at this time. But again, it could be something economic.
Well, the threats have also gone back and forth before, and also over the same issues. But how does one reconcile with the United States a while back being open to talks with China?
Well, the U.S. Was open to talks with China, but as you said, I mean, the tension has escalated. But to be quite honest, the tension has been back and forth over the past for almost 4 years now, 3 years at minimum. And so we know that China and the U.S. have had a seesaw of a relationship. The real question is going to be, is there anything drastic going to happen beyond tension between now and obviously the election season in the U.S., which will be in November? And so depending on what happens with this election will drastically depend on what the relationship between the U.S. and China will be. Again, you have many Democrats and independents that aren't sure if those were the right actions on behalf of the U.S. to request that the consulate be closed down. But then there are those that support President Trump and Republicans like Marco Rubio who are standing in support of the request for closure of that consulate.
And you did mention earlier that there are 5 U.S. consulates in China. So will the United States be planning more measures against China at this time?
At this time, we don't foresee any additional measures. I'm sure that they will be trying to investigate. Most presumably they're requesting that it be shut down because they want to see if there's anything that could be potentially causing any turmoil and tampering of the upcoming U.S. election, which is really at the base of what is being of President Trump's and the White House's reason for closing it down, wanting to ensure that there is no meddling within these upcoming elections.
Well, thank you again, Maria, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Australia is said to have seen its worst day yet in the coronavirus pandemic, recording more than 500 new cases. Majority of the new cases were from the Victoria state, the epicenter of the current outbreak. Global COVID-19 cases now sit just above 15 million, and the death toll has climbed to 617,832. Here's the global update.
Australia has imposed compulsory face mask wearing for residents of the second most populous city, Melbourne, starting today. Following the record number of cases in the country, much of the over 500 new cases were recorded in the Victoria state, of which Melbourne is the capital, with 484 cases. Hong Kong has also reported its highest daily total yet, with 113 new cases. Of those, 105 were local transmissions. The city has seen a rise in the number of cases in recent weeks. Over in South Africa, restaurant owners and workers in the tourist areas, including Cape Town, are holding peaceful protests against the government's reimposed curfew and a ban on sale of alcoholic drinks. Pictures and videos show them holding banners warning of job losses if the government does not reverse the restrictions. In the United States, health officials have signed a contract with pharmaceuticals giant Pfizer and biotech firm BioNTech to buy 100 million doses of their COVID-19 vaccine once it is approved for use. According to Health Secretary Alex Azar, production will start in December, and America could acquire a further 500 million doses. The vaccine will be free to all U.S. residents, although their insurance may be charged. Speaking of vaccines, the Phase 2 clinical trial of the COVID-19 vaccine candidate by the Chinese Academy of Military Medical Sciences and Chinese biotech company CanSino Biologics has found that it is safe and can induce an immune response. 95% of participants in the high-dose group and 91% in the low-dose group had either T-cell or antibody immune responses 28 days after receiving the vaccine. And finally, Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro has had another positive result for the novel coronavirus in the third test he's taken since falling ill on July 7th. The country's communications ministry says the president is still in good condition, accompanied by the presidency's medical team.
Still ahead on The World Today. If you love outer space, you'll definitely find this interesting. A full-size model of the lander and the rover for Tianwen-1, China's first Mars exploration mission. Stay with us. Welcome back to The World Today. The restaurant owners and workers' protest in South Africa has been happening in Cape Town against the government's reimposed curfew and a ban on the sale of alcoholic drinks. We have more from our South African Bureau Chief, Betty Dibia.
As they had threatened a few days ago, on the menu today were empty dining seats on the streets and placard-carrying workers in the restaurants and associated businesses.
I think as an industry we employ a lot of people, and we obviously are on our knees right now. So we're asking our amazing government to please stand up to the plate, step up to the plate. Our staff haven't received UIF. We've had very little help. And we're just hoping that we'll be taken seriously this time and we get back to business.
It's been very bad. I mean, the constituency that I represent, which is taverns, is made up of 34,500 taverns across the country. And this ban on liquor is actually affecting their livelihoods. And we're worried that more than 50% of our taverns will not be able to operate once the ban has been uplifted.
A Apart from the owners, for the workers too, it's been rough these past weeks, especially with the renewed ban in the sale of alcohol and curfew.
Well, we've had no income since March. We've had no help from the government. There's been no UIF payments. So yeah, we've just been battling.
We need extended working hours. We need the unbanning of alcohol, the reduction of this curfew at night.
Most of the people, they're scared to come in and sit. So we're now having like a few tables. I mean, it have been so hard, especially us as waiters.
The National Liquor Traders Council, the Liquor Traders Association of South Africa, Business Leadership South Africa, and the Restaurant Association of South Africa are leading this protest. And they got the ear of government as the Minister for Tourism, Mameloko Kubayi Ngubane, came by to receive their memorandum of demands.
Would be most appreciated. I will definitely take both of this back to my colleague, Minister Dlamini Zuma, but also to the President. We did arrange earlier on in July, June. We did arrange earlier on that the President did meet with the sector. We did present together with the sector the issues. We continue as the department to raise the issues that affect the sector.
Whilst we appreciate and afford the opportunity for her to talk to us today, we certainly need to talk to President Ramaphosa, and we need to talk to Minister Patel and Minister of Kokta to enable us to be able to present the favourable solutions that we've got in lifting the liquor ban, 1, lifting the curfew, 2, talking about the interventions with the financial institutions by making it affordable for us to lend and find cash flow. At this stage, the banks have red flagged us as being high risk, so we cannot continue to trade without income. We also need the UIF to dedicate people to our industry to be able to pay out our UIF payments within 48 hours. We've asked for TERS to be extended, which has been done yesterday, so we certainly are appreciative of that.
And so engagements continue, hopefully with all sides at the table, with the expectation that the sector will sheath their swords and cease for now. The prayer for all is that COVID-19 will be a thing of the past soon enough, and life will get back to normal again. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Betty Dibia, Channels Television News.
Well, here in Nigeria, data earlier released by the Center for Disease Control shows that 11 out of the 20 local government areas that account for 60% of the cases are in Lagos State, the country's commercial capital. Our correspondent, Dare Idowu, visited some of the areas in Lagos to seek answers on what could be the root cause of the spike at the community level and efforts aimed at reducing the spread.
Alimosho, Koshofe, Mushi are among the most populated local governments in Lagos State. But Etiosa, one of the least populated, leads the pack with the highest number of COVID-19 cases in the state. Obviously concerned, the Lagos State government, through its agencies, have been enforcing regulations to minimize breach of protocols across the state.
There's a lot of emphasis on us, particularly with regard to Etiosa. We enforce daily. We carry out our regular enforcement also over the weekends.
Enforcement or not, the state appears to be back to its pre-COVID-19 days and also in full swing. There are other interventions to back the non-pharmaceutical approach, and Professor Babatunde Salako leads the team here at the Nigerian Institute of Medical Research. He explains the different possibilities around the trend of heavy community spread in some locations.
Some people, mistakenly thought that COVID-19 is a disease of the rich, because the people who brought it are people who have money to travel abroad and come back home. And if you look at this local government that you are talking about, you see that a lot of the elites in Lagos who are well-to-do or who could be described as well-to-do live in those areas. When it became clear that people can go to isolation center and come back and get well, then the fear was beginning to go down, and people came out for testing.
There are different explanations as to why there could be a concentration of the spread of COVID-19 in some areas, especially in the Lagos State. But there's only one way to find out: through testing. Nigeria may not be testing enough, but this drive-through center is an effort in that direction to ensure that more people get tested. So people drive in and the samples and the information collected, they wait 24 hours or 48 hours to get their results.
Few kilometers away from the testing center in Lagos mainland, at this densely populated market in Mushin, one of the local government listed as a red zone, most people here can't be bothered. Those with face masks properly worn appear to be the odd ones. Majority have their mask permanently lowered to the jaw level.
Let me also...
The federal and state governments have imposed different restrictions and protocols, aiming to reduce transmission of COVID-19, but activities across the state suggest there might be some slacks, making it more pressing for authorities to recalibrate its efforts to finally fight the virus to its knees. Dari Ido, Channels Television News.
We have been keeping our eyes on the floods in Nepal caused by over a month of torrential rains. And then we came across this unbelievable video, and we have to warn that to watch this with discretion. It's of a motorcyclist which felt the full brunt of the floodwaters as he and his bike were pushed off the road and over a steep drop in Nepal. It was an eyewitness video which captured the moment. It also captured the moment people rushed into the fast-moving water to rescue the rider and his bike. Nepal has been battling flash floods and landslides that have killed at least 134 people since June. Dozens of others are feared to be missing, officials have said. Incessant rains have lashed Nepal for days as landslides and floodwaters swept away homes, destroyed roads, bridges, and inundated large swaths of farmlands. And it doesn't seem to be getting any better as officials in the weather forecasting office in Kathmandu say heavy rains are expected through today, even into the evening. Full-size models of the lander and the rover for Tianwen-1, China's first Mars exploration mission, have made their debut today. The 1.85-meter-high Mars rover, weighing 240 kilograms, will conduct scientific investigations, including the red planet's surface composition, material type distribution, geological structure, and the Martian meteorological environment. 6 types of payloads: terrain camera, multispectral camera, subsurface detection radar, surface composition detector, surface magnetic field detector, and meteorological measuring instrument aboard the rover will be used to collect data. The rover also features functions as environment perception, obstacle recognition, local path planning, and coordination and control of multiple wheel motion in order to adapt to the unusual environment on the Martian surface. Powered by solar energy, the Mars rover is designed to have a lifetime of 3 Martian months, about 92 Earth days. China plans to launch its first Mars probe between July and August this year, aiming to complete orbiting, landing, and roving in one mission. Well, we're definitely looking forward to see how that will turn out. Thank you so much for joining us for The World Today. I'm Akaite Afia.